You're listening to 90 Day Soulmate with the relationship engineers, Jim Gulnick and Lisett Guevara, only on LA Talk Radio.
90 Day Soulmate is brought to you by 90 Day Solutions. Welcome to 90 Day Soulmate with Lisett
and Jim.
Today we're going to be doing a reading from the book While Victoria Dreams. It's from chapter X, which is 10, not to be confused with the app X or Meta X or whatever, the X-Men. Chapter 10, and it's called Kamikaze Practice. What we're going to do is deconstruct ourselves, kind of understand more about ourselves through the characters in the book. The characters potentially being representative of us. Casually. Remember, this book is all true. The stories in here are all true, but names have been changed to protect the innocent as well as the guilty. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the phrase that you say in the book.
What was that? Based upon actual events. So
Exactly.
It's all, everything in here is actual. A little change.
Yes.
But it's to be a little comedic, a little bit romantic, a little bit
reflection,
mystery and reflection, and some pretty cool life lessons. Mm-hmm. Mystery signs, symbols, symbology. Again, While Victoria Dreams. So, Chapter 10, Kamikaze Practice. Vincent said goodbye to his daughters. They had been with him that weekend. They had spent time filled with... They'd spent a lot of time with him. I'm going to just paraphrase this a little bit. But Vincent got to spend the weekends with his daughters, and then they went back to school and living with their
talking
mom.
Talking about Vincent, not about you.
Vincent. They got to spend time with their mom for the week and then come visit on the weekend. So the weekend got to spend time filling his heart with joy, seeing their smiling faces. Then he would send them back off to the mother.
And also maybe a lot of people do the same.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing.
Yeah, and also yesterday I was in the plane and one guy sitting next to me and he say, I go to Houston, pick up my daughter to Thanksgiving and coming back. So it's when you see the people start to try to, because he's divorced. So that's as many people doing that.
And I think we've had this conversation, and I think we'll get right into it, is that we're not here to read the book. We're here to understand the characters, the situations, and how it relates to everyday people. And for instance, the splitting of time with the children. You go, oh, it's so difficult. It's difficult, it's hard, but at the same time, it could be the best thing. It's
important, yeah.
If you're in a bad relationship, or we're in a bad relationship, is it better to be in a bad, argumentative, no-love relationship, showing your children that's what the relationship is, rather than the sacrifices you make to not have that bad relationship in order to try to have civility and bring up your children, maybe seeing you in a different relationship, in a loving relationship.
And can learn about the being relationship healthy is a good option versus the keeping the bad relationship because the family. Also, some child feel guilty because they stay married with me versus they say my parents is happy each other with a new couple.
So it can be that way. Now, I want to just completely go off track like we normally do and go, a relationship can be difficult. And it's not to say that if you have difficulty in the relationship, split up because it's best for you guys and then have the children deal with it and you deal with it. No, it's to say that if you ever get to the point where you're like, this is not a good relationship, these are the struggles that people go through. And anybody in that similar situation, it's not an easy decision to make. Maybe when you're really young, or it doesn't matter that you're young or not. You may just have okay, I'm done with the relationship and move on. And I know that in the book, I know in my own life, that when I was younger, relationships were easier to just say, I guess there was less invested. When you have an early relationship, when you're younger, maybe you don't have children, you don't have a house together, you don't have a home, maybe you're not married yet. And so it's very easy to say, you know what, I'm out of this relationship. But by the time you have that commitment, by the time you maybe have children, you've bought an apartment, a condo, or a house together, you've supported your spouse or your partner through their schooling, is that you become tied, inextricably tied. Like, we can't separate because we have so much
common stuff.
Right, like family. You go visit your partner's family on the weekend, they visit your family on the weekend. You've now got this extended family, so there's a lot riding on the relationship. However, if that relationship gets to a point where you've tried working on it, you've tried to educate yourself, you've done things together, and it's just not working, and you have separated, like Vincent had done in the book, and others had done in real life, that at that point you now are seeing Vincent dropping his girls back off at his ex-wife's residence, or dropping them off at school so they could go back. It's relatable, right? It's relatable. And these are things we learn. Let's go. So he was now wondering of his inability to find somebody who his wants and needs meshed with his, so that their wants and needs and his wants and needs fit together. That this was the failure of after his second relationship, second marriage. So Vincent is with his children from his second marriage, and this is a divorce he's gone through or was going through at the time. So feeling like if the first divorce is the toughest, right?
I don't know, because I just have one. So I can
The first divorce is the toughest for anybody who is
more than one.
But this is what I mean by that, is that and I'll do this personally, during my first divorce, which was a very short relationship, I thought that I would never be able to meet anyone again, because as soon as I said I am divorced, that would be like a red flag immediately to somebody else. And being a red flag, I felt I was an inferior alternative than someone else who maybe had never been in a relationship like that, and that there was going to be a very difficult time. But by the time the second and the third, I'm like, wait a second. You can find people.
Come on.
and I don't say it was easy, and any of these things were easy, because as you can see in the book, as with Vincent, every relationship had its trials and tribulations. They all started off thinking that this is going to be a lifelong marriage. It wasn't like, let's just try marriage and see if it works. It wasn't a fixed marriage, a set marriage. I want to go to the point that we were talking about here. So one thing that Vincent felt certain of was that he needed a woman who also had children. This was a fundamental common ground. Women who didn't already have children often had a difficult time understanding his need to spend time with his own children, which inevitably ate into his time with his partners. He didn't need the complication of a jealous woman who wouldn't let him share with his little ones. That was non-negotiable. So two things here is that showing you that there is a jealousy. There's a jealousy your kids have of this new relationship, right? That it's not the mama. And who is this person? And I'm sharing time. And so there's that. And there's the other as well, which is the new person looking at the relationship you have with your children, which has been developed over many years since birth, and they may see you biasly acting in their favor, like how are you treating this one way, this one that way, or how do you treat them that way when they did this? And
also in the critical day, like the holidays, like the Thanksgiving, when you have your kid and family and you have your girlfriend.
so
where you are.
So we know people that after separating or after divorce, they still said, for the kids, let's spend holidays together.
Yeah.
Right? So they would get back together. They would go on vacation with their ex-spouse or something like that. And I remember that was early on in my own experience with, even though the divorce was tough, it was like, well, for the kids, let's like try to be like at least civil together.
Yeah.
Let's do things together. If we're going to go on vacation, vacation together, maybe not stay in the same place, but stay in the same area. So that way the kids felt this simulation of still having family.
We'll go back to the point. Yes.
The point is that Vincent is feeling that he could only wanted to find a woman that already had children so she would understand his situation and the balance needed. Don't mistake situation and the environment that you are in presently with who you are. And in reflection of that today with Lisett, we were looking back at this and going that Vincent was looking at his current situation and saying he needs someone to fit with his situation.
And situation is temporary.
Situation is temporary. Situation is caused by a whole series of causes and effects that are internal and external and may be biological as well, right? So we're talking about that early on in relationships when we're driven by lust, when we're driven by emotions, we make choices that really aren't us. We shut off our prefrontal cortex, we make decisions, we get into situations, and now we're into this situation and we're saying, we need someone who matches this situation which was caused by chemistries that caused us to get into these situations without thinking.
And sometimes you lose yourself going through the situation. So when you lose yourself, you cannot find yourself and the person for you.
Something we always say is that our actions are typically a projection of who we are. But our actions that have developed over time can also be a path that we've been led down by external factors, by our chemistry changing, as we talked about, making decisions based upon lust, making decisions based upon emotion. And now we're in the situation again that we're saying, I want someone to match my current situation, which I got into not being very smart, not really thinking of who I am, but following instincts and following chemistries and following environmental stimuli.
There's some values. Maybe you're thinking at this moment, Vincent's thinking about a child. So you maybe want to find somebody that have a child for protect your own child versus thinking is the right person for Vincent.
Right. Right. And so that is our point, is that separating internally who you are at your core, the peaceful core, when you relax and when you think. I'm almost going to say when you meditate and you go, okay, who am I without emotion? Who do I want to be? What do I want to accomplish? How do I want to make an impact in the world? When you think of that person rather than your current situation, what is my job? Where do I live? What's my car? What's my education?
Is it good to find a woman nearby my job? So that is something that maybe is not work because she lives close and this is perfect match.
Yeah, geographically. I live in Montana. My town has 247 people. It's got to be one of those people because they match. Come on, right?
Yeah.
So the situation is not necessarily an outward expression of who you are, but it is something that you've gotten into by taking a path with a lot of outside stimuli and a lot of internal chemical contributions from biology with chemicals that cause us to not think when we are in those initial stages of a relationship. Plus, when we're just, we're going through a whole bunch of emotions. When we're younger, we make a lot of decisions based upon those emotions, and then we end up somewhere. We're on a cruise ship somewhere in the Bahamas. It's like, how did I get here? Well, We're going to start talking a little bit more about that and other things when we come back on 90 Day Soulmate with Lisett
and Jim.
We're here at Gulnick at Francis Ford Coppola's new winery. Well, they've had it for a few years, but this is his library. Books that he has read over the years that have accumulated in his knowledge. Here we have 90 Day Soulmate, How to Find Your Perfect Match in 90 Days by Lisett Guevara and Jim Gulnick. Welcome back to 90 Day Soulmate with Lisett
and Jim.
Today we're talking about Chapter 10 from the book. While Victoria Dreams, Chapter 10 is called Kamikaze Practice.
The
end of the chapter will explain. Yeah. When we get to the end of this segment, the end of this show, you'll know what Kamikaze Practice is.
Yes.
This continues on. So now Vincent goes to his office. He's in this general routine where he checks his emails before starting the day. He felt disillusioned by not feeling like he had any hope of meeting somebody who met these things that he thought he needed based upon his current situation. Well, on this particular day, he had this woman named Erin email him. She can write really well, as he thought. He was like, there was this intrigue in the way she wrote.
She can write book.
Oh, maybe. Actually, that was one of the things Vincent was talking about, because in here we talk about the power of 26. It was a book that Vincent was working on, and Erin, being a good writer, would be the perfect partner to write this book. Even though he had no idea of internally how she felt and how he felt, he was externalizing and creating expectations based upon no real information, but fantasize about what could possibly be.
Yeah.
Right? So you're looking at the tip of the iceberg and thinking of the giant house you're going to build on it, the ice palace you're going to build on top of the iceberg with this person you've just met, and you don't actually know what's below the surface of the water. You don't know where they're from, where they grew up, what was their education, their family.
Values.
Right, their geography, their religion, their beliefs. You don't know any of that, but you have this
first interaction.
We talked about this as well, is we both spoke English, so you think you understand each other.
And I don't speak English, and we got it.
But we had this communication with a friend the other day, right? We were talking about how when you meet somebody and they speak your language, you think you are communicating well because you all have a great command of vocabulary. Or at least you think you have a common command, right? You have a certain set of words that are being used, and maybe you use things grammatically correct. The challenge is, even though we have the same words, the meaning to us can be completely different. And we talk about like the blue cover. If I just say blue can be the dog from Blue's Clues. Blue can be I'm feeling sad. Blue can be the sky blue. Blue can be ocean blue. And how we relate, all the things and contexts that we in our head think about blue, we have a little bit of a different definition and connections within our brain, because everything in our brain is multi-connected to like everything else based upon past usage, pre-programming, and every word that we have has a definition based upon other definitions, other pictures, other images, other memories, and every word in our language means something different to everyone with a nuance. There's similarities. I'm eating. But eating for you may be an enjoyable experience. Eating for somebody else may be, you know what, every time I eat, I've got to cook. I've got to do this. You know what, I have gastrointestinal problems. When I eat, I don't feel good. So when we even say the word eating, you think of someone eating, but somebody can have a negative reaction to it, right?
Yeah. But talking about language, so sometimes it's not necessarily has to perfect grammar.
Right.
Just the body language. You see?
So body, and we talk about this. This is a good one.
Yeah.
Is that in communication, body language is something like, what was it? 57% of the communication is body language. 30% or something, 35% is tone. And it was something like 6 or 7% are the words we use.
Mm-hmm. So no, be concerned when you don't get it one phrase or something with somebody. Maybe have a bit information behind.
So, meeting somebody through email, through text messages on the internet where only words are used, and you lose the tone, you lose the body language, you lose that interconnection of exact facial recognition, emotional recognition, feedback, and you're having that conversation with them, you're completely, potentially misreading every single word. Because not only are the words not exactly what they're communicating is not what they are thinking, they're putting into words to the best of their ability what they're thinking. You're reading them and they're changed in your mind because your definition of those words are completely different than theirs, or at least slightly different. But when every word is slightly different,
so the people fall in love with the chat. Maybe for Vicent fall in love just chatting with what is the name, the lady?
This is Erin.
Erin.
Yeah.
So they feel, and many people happen. I have people that show me all chat back and forth for somebody they fall in love or never meet, and I say, watch out, because also you can take it from Google any kind of beautiful phrase and copy paste and enjoy how somebody love you without know you.
They don't. And that's how I spent all that money on the Nigerian princess, because we were in love. She needed help. She was stuck in a palace with a big dragon.
Because the dragon there is
the dragon was terrible, so we sent money to help pay for the knights with the swords to rescue her.
No, and gas for the fire.
Put out the fire, to put out the fire.
Yeah.
The point of this, again, is that this now relationship in here is founded on initial email back and forth. But not only that, the words. Remember, words have meanings. And where I was going with it is you have a sentence of 10 words. If every word is 1 to 10% miscommunicated, meaning your definition of this word is 1 to 10% different because of all the connections you have with that word than the other person, and the next word is, and the next word is, and the next word is, and the order you put them in and how you use them is based upon where you grew up, your family, and all this, is that by the time you're at the end of the sentence, if you use exponential, or you multiply 2% by 2% by 2% by 2%, that by the time you're done with a sentence, that sentence is about 20%, 30% misleading at that point. And that's why when you have books on subjects, and they're typically scientific subjects, they are huge, and they're long, and they're in-depth, and they have definitions, and they have research, and they have references. And then they define words and terminology in order for you to try to have common ground to then understand the scientific research. We don't have, when we first meet, we don't say, here are the set of words, and this is the definition and meanings. And not only the definitions and meanings, but this is the emotional content of those words. This is how they impacted us in our past life. This is how my parents used those words. Like just my name, Jimmy. You know, you could just say Jimmy, and I could be thinking, oh, that's how my parents used to yell at me to come down for dinner. And what I rather you say is my dear. My dear.
Yeah.
Which, again, we were at a restaurant in California. Was that California? Somewhere out there. And the service person, the waitress, kept saying to us at the table, my dear, my dear, my dear. And
you fall in love.
Just fell in love. And Lisette's like, why would someone who doesn't know you call you my dear? Right?
No, so we are with somebody
from another country.
And he say the translation, and I say, why did she mention that? Because,
Yeah, like, does she know you already?
Yeah.
No, she wouldn't say my dear, she'd call me my lord. But the point is, to her, that was something that was common and easy. She was a younger waitress, like maybe 20 years old. Her dad actually worked at the same restaurant, if you remember. He was the bartender.
Yeah.
So it was interesting how she utilized this, very pleasant, And it just rolled off like it was a weird comment. And depending on how you were, like Lisett was like, this is strange. Why is a woman that my husband doesn't know calling him my dear? Our friend from Spain was saying, why would somebody just start using my dear? That's something they never heard somebody call somebody in the United States, especially in that situation.
Yeah,
So-
but and also in the United States, because in other countries, Latin America, you can say my love, my whatever, and it's normal.
Right, my
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
It's normal.
It's normal, yeah. But somebody that you never
All
know.
those women that I'm
Yeah.
writing to those notes of my love,
Yeah.
it's normal.
It's normal.
That's
Not really, really.
Okay.
You go to one store and they go to buy bread, and the person say, "Hey, my love, what do you want?" And they say, "Oh, I want these," and it's normal for everybody. So it depends on the culture.
So going backwards again, going back to words. If words have no meaning, and yet they are so many times what defines a relationship at the beginning through, oh, he texted me, I texted her, she texted her, he texted him, that these texts go back and forth and you're building up this, what you think is a relationship. And it's really, at the beginning of a relationship, not only is it words, but what else is it? It's words where you've kind of shut off your prefrontal cortex because you're in this not honeymoon stage, but the lust, the emotional, the chemistry is running, where you're putting feelings into the words that may not have been
Maybe it's
there.
not. Yeah. So the way that you can create false expectation in yourself versus the half up front, and also this is part of this chapter, how you be open and have a really transparent conversation without this kind of feeling. And this is tough. It's not easy for when you start to dating somebody.
It isn't. And let's continue on with this because this gets even better. So she can write well. Vincent's going, wow, here's somebody who may be able to collaborate with me on this book, with these expectations that you're talking
And
about.
she
These
has
false,
a kid, so the
she has,
perfect woman.
she has kids, and they're stair-stepped in age, that his are 5, hers are 6, his is 7, hers is 8, and they fit together, something like that, right? So it's like, this is perfect, and he's envisioning all these things, again, based upon the situation that basically, literally, he fell into through a series of wrong choices that he made before in life, thinking they were the right choices, but a lot of them based upon lust, relationship, emotions,
Yeah.
and not really getting to know somebody before piling into a relationship, right? Buying the house, buying the car, having the children, and then going, who am I? How did I get here? Who is this person? Why did she just run off with someone else? You know, you ask yourselves those questions, right?
It's part of the package.
So what's next, though, is she says during one of their online chats back and forth, texting, because here, even at this point, they haven't talked at all. Erin told Vincent about a relationship she was having with a literature professor at the university, gushing about her interest in the subject of literature. The alarm flags went up for Vincent, like, oh my gosh. But not only did they go up, but they drove his animal instinct to fight for this relationship, right? So immediately, reading into the language wrong, but thinking it was right. It could have been. But obviously, again, language being only 7% of communication, tone being 30% or so, and body language being 50+%, 55%, 57% of communication. Not having all those things, having all these false expectations, and then being told, oh, I'm also dating a literature professor. Now the emotions kick in. And
She know the marketing.
oh, maybe that's what
the
she's doing.
competitors, so I see what happened in the market.
It's persuasion. It's
Yeah.
called the takeaway close.
Yeah.
I am highly wanted. There's only one of me, and there's multiple of you looking to, quote, have me. So now it's like, oh my gosh, scarcity, right? Scarcity. Well, there's a couple things. Bandwagon, other people want me, so you must want me. Scarcity, there's only one of me, and there's multiple of you. And shortage, that I may start dating this other guy, and then I'm no longer available, right? So that
And
is.
lose something that you never have.
So there's a book over the table on the other side called Persuasion by Cialdini, Dr. Robert Cialdini, and he talks about persuasion. And if you look at what Erin did, it's classic persuasion
And work.
psychology. Whether she did it on purpose or not, that's how it came across to Vincent. So he dives headfirst into this relationship thinking, oh my gosh, well, actually not thinking, right? Because now all his lust chemicals kicked in, all his competitive, part of this is anger, right? So you've got this biological psychology.
Yeah, revolutionary
ding, ding,
psychology.
ding, ding.
No.
Evolutionary psychology. That kicks in because you want survival of the species. You fight against that other caveman, and you say, I need to be the winner. I need to have this person. They need to be with me. And all logic goes to the wayside. You go after the relationship, all costs. And now it's like you're willing to say, do anything because you're really not thinking of the consequence.
Yeah.
You're thinking of the objective.
Yeah. You are focused and take these and you feel the winner.
Oh, our objective is to have a great third segment when we come back on 90 Day Soulmate with Lisett
and Jim.
Once upon a time, there was a couple and a newborn baby. Or should I say, a single mum. This brave young lady left her 9-to-5 job to follow her passion and started a consulting business. Her friends helped out. She travelled the world, met new people, and again came home. The woman dated to find a man who would fill her life and fit her plan. She met a guy who checked out ladies. That burned her up. That made her crazy. Other guys were full of verve, into their self, no room for her. And one time she met a man with patch over eye and axe in hand. Then one day she had enough. Her little boy was all grown up. Tired of attracting the wrong type of guy, it was time to give something else a try. She got her computer and started to plan and created a process to find her man. Soon she went on a perfect date. And then she knew it must be fate. In just 90 days, that is all it took. How she found her match? It is in the book.
90 Day Soulmate is brought to you by 90 Day Solutions. Welcome back to 90 Day Soulmate with Lisett
and Jim.
To continue our reading from While Victoria Dreams, a book, a mystery book, a real-life, is it saga? Not much of a saga. It's romantic, comedy, a little bit of mystery, dreams, a lot of dream revelation, and how potentially two people, multiple people, end up meeting, falling in love, falling out of love, having challenges. Today we're reading from chapter 10 called Kamikaze Practice. And we just went through how Vincent got into a relationship with Erin, who is an English, I won't say student, but really good at English and writing, who impresses him through her words she uses, through the dialogue, the wittiness back and forth, and then as he's starting to project their connection and relationship through the words that are used, she springs upon him Competition, professor of literature, who is somebody she's also interested in dating. This turns into a full-fledged relationship. She has children that match his children's ages approximately. They are both witty back and forth in writing. There's a perceived connection that way, and the competition makes him do whatever in order to win her over, and he does. We're going to move into what happens later. There's a marriage. You can read about it in the book. And at some point, things like this happen. Let's see if I can find it here. What happens? Things don't go as well as expected. They actually don't go as expected. So Vincent would head for the parking lot at 5 p.m. and give Erin a call that he was on his way home. Sometimes he'd run into another employee on the way to his car and strike up a conversation for 10 to 15 minutes. It could be about weather, golf, or nothing specific. But when Vincent would arrive home 10 to 15 minutes later than he projected, Erin would say, "You lied to me. You weren't leaving." That it became a trust issue between the two. And there are other things going on. It's just not simply somebody not trusting the other. There's other things that are not going well in the relationship. So difficulties prevail that may have been prevented if what was under the surface of the water was investigated, looked at, researched prior to deeply falling in romantic love. So the lust stages that moved to romantic love moved them to a relationship, and Vincent...
Routine, the day by day.
And then as they started to settle into their routine, they start losing the lust aspect of their relationship. The prefrontal cortex kicked back in. There was a recognition of the facial expression, the body language, the tone of voice that wasn't matching the preconceived notions they had early on in their relationship. It got to a point where they just couldn't communicate. Vincent had lost his job. They weren't able to make ends meet to afford the house and to afford the different expenses that they had. And Vincent tried to bring it up with Erin multiple times, and it was really difficult to have a conversation of understanding. Things weren't going well in the relationship. They slept in different rooms. They weren't romantic, and it was just two people taking up space. Things didn't end up happening as they thought. So Vincent doesn't know what to do. He can't come up with a budget. He can't come up with a budget with her to make things work out. Can't have her understand. He doesn't know how to talk to her. So instead of pushing for more talk and more conversation, he just gives up. And what does he do? He just stops paying the mortgage. It forces things to happen. So after losing his job and taking on another job that paid a third of the money, just needed to be able to figure out how to make things work. Can't afford the house. The ability to have a catastrophic event occur, like foreclosure.
How about the keeping well the house? Also, maybe it's not doing because they know the house.
Well,
is...
it's time too. It's like Vincent felt he had to take care of the yard, he had to take care of the pool. We couldn't, he couldn't hire people to do this because there just wasn't the money. And why take care of a pool that needed $200 chemicals a month when you didn't have enough money to pay for the mortgage? And so the pool started not being as nice. The yard started looking not as nice. The house was, the house was a mess, by the way. The house was a mess. That wasn't all his doing. And he ended up sleeping on the couch for a long time. But by not paying the mortgage, it was what we call the kamikaze part of this. Create something that causes your own downfall, that creates a situation that you have to make a change. Everything crashes to the ground, and now it's the opportunity. We can't afford here. I think it's time that I move to an apartment. Yeah. So the question is, number one is you don't want to get into a relationship where you end up having to do something drastic, right, to extract yourself from the relationship. So,
and sometimes you try to not hurt the person and prefer a big explosion around everybody's hurt versus you.
Self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
So it's hurting me as much as it's hurting you. Mm-hmm. Rather than we got to break up and have you hurt, it's, the situation is dire for all of us. What do you think we should do?
I am victim too.
Yeah.
So you need to demonstrate, and then you do the kamikaze behavior.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. So if you're not confrontational, and some people are more confrontational, and they'll bring this up and they'll fight about it, and they'll fight and fight and fight, and others are like, I can't talk about it. I don't want to hurt the other person. I don't want to get emotionally angry about it. Every time I've had a conversation that I wanted to go in a certain order, in a certain direction, I can't get there because the other person doesn't want to have that conversation, or they are not facing reality, or maybe you're not facing reality. You know, the reality that the other person, in this situation, the other person didn't want to end the relationship. And it wasn't really end the relationship because they love the other person. It was change the situation because the status quo is sometimes, familiarity is sometimes more safe than the unknown. I'd rather, you know, we've talked about this too, in a country where maybe the economy is terrible and there's not a lot of food to eat and there's a lot of inflation, and you have the opportunity of saying, you know what, I can leave here and go somewhere else, a new country, new town, new place, take a new job, try to make a change, and you say, well, but I know this. I'm comfortable here because I have family, I have friends, I have other people who are in the same situation, and I'd rather just live in the status quo that may not be good rather than move to the unknown, which could be better.
Oh, could be not.
Could be not.
Who knows?
But even if all signs logically say it could be better, your gut could be status quo is the safest place to go. Right?
Yeah. It'll go back to the kamikaze behavior, because it's when you don't have the conscious to see the what is the real benefit for everybody versus the do something that hurt everybody, include yourself.
Well, and that could have been the situation. Okay, we're going to have a conversation. The conversation is, let's sell the house. We could make a little money on it. We could get an apartment together. So instead of paying $6,000 a month with all these expenses and insurance and different things and cars, we can move to a $1,000 apartment, 2-bedroom, whatever it is, and we could make things work this way. But if you can't have that conversation, and the leaving the house was not an option to go to an apartment by selling the home. So how do you get out of the home? Vincent makes a decision. Just stop making payments. Can't afford them. Here's a spreadsheet that says we have $4,500 coming in and we have $6,700 going out. And here are all the expenses, you know, between insurance, car expenses, food, phone, energy bills, internet, phone, all that stuff. Netflix.
That you don't need. How many cars?
Blockbuster.
How many
5 cars, 16 motorcycles.
I see. Yeah. You see, everybody sell the car and pay the mortgage.
So the kamikaze piece is that some of us do this in our own lives, and it could be with work. You were talking about with work.
Yeah,
go ahead. When do you tell that
people,
story?
Some people, no, I don't want to tell the story completely, okay. But some people don't thinking well and try to keep some bad practice because believe that is the best way, based upon the unconscious they know that is wrong, and destroy yourself, destroy the company. So it's some kind of behavior that is many people we can see.
So
it's unconscious. It's not, sometimes it's not intentional.
And I don't know if this is kamikaze or this is just protecting your own ego. I had a person that worked night shift at the company that I was operating at one point. They would be checked in the morning. They work night shift. I'd come in the morning and go, okay, where's this product that we were supposed to run? And they would say, this happened. Oh, I never got it from the preceding department. And you check with the preceding department. They say, yep, we did it. Here's our record of it. It went to that department. And they'd say, nope, I never got it. Well, it turned out that if you looked at the video camera, you saw that this product came down their production line, came out of their process. The person looks at it, there's a problem with it, and they throw it out. So instead of admitting that there might have been a problem in their work cell and something happened in their work cell, they would rather claim, I never got it. And there are so many times people want to protect themselves from being blamed.
It's avoid the small problem. Sometimes we avoid a small problem versus confront.
And create bigger problem.
Create bigger problems. So it's preferred that you have somebody in the beginning. That is wrong. What do we have to do? Versus, let me hire it, and then.
So what happens is that morning, the product's not ready to ship, but if they had seen that it was a bad product, they could have gone back to the preceding department and said, hey, I need 2 more of that product because these came out wrong. We need to get these done. They could have done them and then had them ready for the truck that morning. Mm-hmm. But it's not their job. Oh, it's not my job. My job is just to run this machine.
Yeah, and avoid the problem.
And avoid the problem.
Yeah.
That's kind of like sometimes in a relationship. Mm-hmm. I need to run my relationship where I avoid the problem. Avoidance.
Yeah. I see many people also, they see the wife or the husband doing something that you don't like and prefer. Let me quiet. And I want to put this topic in the table and then start to grow up the problem.
So do you think relationships could be saved with communication?
High percent.
High percent. Do you think relationships could be better from the start with communication?
What does that mean?
What do I mean? We talked about earlier on of how words can have different meanings to people. Backgrounds, where they grew up, geography, religion, family, culture can all impact the feelings around sayings and words and how you talk and how you communicate. So having a common set of, even if it's not common, but a common understanding of what things mean. If I know where you grew up, how your parents talked to you, how you dealt with your cousins, and I knew everything about you from the time you were, a little kid to your extended family, to things that occurred in your neighborhood, to things that happened when you were in school. If I knew all that and I knew a lot about your family before I deeply got into conversations with you, maybe the conversations would be more clear.
Yeah, definitely. And all these need time. You cannot jump in immediately with some serious relationship because you need to know the person in different situation, because we're talking about the promotion time. So when you are in promotion time, you show your best part of you. But really, when you are critical situation,
right,
you have to live with them, see how you acting, how you handle. So my recommendation is take a time and know for the people before you jump into serious relationship.
And you just brought up something that I think is very important. We know what it is to be promoting ourselves in a relationship. We treat somebody nicely. We do these things. We do this on time. How we talk, how we take care of them, how we call, how we follow up, all these things, right? So we know the promotion. Many times we don't actually know who we are. Meaning down deep, we haven't really done the work of saying, who are we? What do we like? What do we dislike? How we grew up? What is our culture? What worked for me in relationships? What worked for me in family communication in the past? How my family communicated? That we know less about that of ourselves, who we are, and we know more about how we are supposed to act in trying to win that rose from The Bachelor. I'm going to act this way to win the rose, and it's all artificial acting. So we know the fake, but we don't know the real. And that's the reason we wrote 90 Day Soulmate, which 12 years ago at this point, 12 years ago, we wrote this book. This was when we had just been married for maybe 2 days.
Before marriage.
Well, it was written in 2011, and we got married in when?
2011 we started to write.
Yes, we started writing the book before we were married. But the point of it is, when we wrote this book, we got a lot of people saying, well, how long have you been together? And it was like, a few days, a few months, then a year. And now it's 13 years. Going on 14. Actually, it's 14 coming in 2024.
Wow.
The point of that is the exercises in the book, which talks about family and talks about upbringing and talks about past relationships, about who you are, how you grew up, your culture, how you communicated with people you loved, what worked for you, what didn't work for you, are things we discussed in this relationship, in our relationship, that Vincent and Aaron didn't discuss, that Vincent and Lily didn't discuss. Vincent and those other women didn't discuss. And Victoria and her first husband didn't discuss. There wasn't a good sense, a good basis of what came under the surface of the water, which led to decisions being made on what our perceptions were, on lust, on shutting off that prefrontal cortex, and of not having that common ground and understanding of knowing ourselves, knowing the other, and then being able to communicate better. And that's what we hope you learn with us at 90 Day Soulmate with Lisett
and Jim.
Have a great week.
See you next week.
You're listening to 90 Day Soulmate with the Relationship Engineers, Jim Gulnick and Lisett Guevara, only on LA Talk Radio.